I'll start with my prayer. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Am I audible? Clear? Am I clear? Audible? Yes.
Very clear.
So when this topic of Advaita as the very vision of Vedanta was decided as the topic for today's Satsang, I was a little worried. And when I was discussing it with the organizer, Sajani, she said, most of the participants of today's Satsang are quite sufficiently exposed to the teachings of Vedanta. So that gave me a lot of comfort. And I felt that, yeah, then, I can just be free in saying whatever I have to say. And I'm very happy to find many of my Thursday class students here. So, I mean, I can really go at that level, and some of my friends also who are very, very kind of done a lot of study in Vedanta here. So that way it gives me a lot of freedom to deal with this topic absolutely, freely. But still, I'll try to do justice to this topic, not only with the seriousness involved in it, but at the same time, probably I'll try to make it as simple as possible so that those, whom I really do not know very well here will also be able to really, have, the flavor of what Vedanta says and what is the vision of Vedanta. Now, I have chosen to speak most of my today's content. I have taken from Chandogya Upanishad, which is one of the most important Upanishads, which really talks about Advaita as, the main content of some of its topics. And that is one of the most important Upanishads from which the Mahavakya Tattvamasi is taught in every Vedanta class. To every Vedanta student, this is taught. So now let us see what is the meaning of Advaita. Now, Advaita means na dvaitam iti advaitam. That means that where there are no two things, where there is only one without a second. Ekameva advitiyam. One without a second is that vision of Vedanta. Now, is that our vision too at present? That's not our vision at present, isn't it? Then how do we know that when Vedanta says that there is only one thing here, there is nothing else except one thing, there is nothing other than one thing, which it calls that Sat or consciousness or existence. It says there's only one thing. There are not many. But then what is our vision at present? Our vision is that wherever we see, whatever we do, we are only seeing multiplicity. We are only seeing duality everywhere. And the vision of Vedanta, which is nothing but there is nothing other than one stuff, one substance. It's very difficult for us to accept that. So how does Vedanta try to put this across to people like us? So Vedanta has a method of putting across this oneness, one without a second, Advaitam, that there is only one thing that is there, nothing other than that. In spite of duality, in spite of plurality, there is only one thing. How does Vedanta put this across to us? Now, let us see one thing here. Now, when I am here as an individual, I cannot exist alone as an individual. I interact with other individuals and I interact or transact with the Jagat or the world outside. So, minimum I have got 3 here. Where is the question of 1? It's minimum. That's the minimum here. 3. So, I am there as an individual and there is other individuals around me and there are objects of the Jagat, objects of the world, universe outside me, with whom I am doing all these transactions. Now, when I see the Jagat outside, when I see this universe or the world outside, I see that the world is running with such a precision. And this world is something where I find there is some kind of a hidden intelligence, because the entire Jagat is something, though it looks multiple, though it looks as if there is a lot of duality at every step. I see that this whole system of Jagat, which Jagat means the world or the universe outside, this whole Jagat, though it is multiple, I see some kind of a system in it. I don't find it chaotic. I find that there are laws and laws and laws which make this whole universe of multiplicity function like one big machine. So, if I'm an intelligent person, I will think over this and feel that if this multiplicity in the Jagat, when I see all these different things in the Jagat, and when I see that the whole thing is working in a perfect order, there must be some intelligent principle behind this, which is making this universe function with its precision. Not only the universe, when I look at myself also, myself as the body, as the mind, as the sense complex, as the anatomy of my body, as the physiology of my body, as the psychology of this individual, the whole individual I am also very, very intelligently put together, isn't it? So now, when I say three are there, I see and realize that I, as an individual, there are other individuals also. There is a difference individual to individual. And then I find that all the individuals, all the people, all the living beings with whom I interact, not only human beings, but the other living beings, can also be included in the world outside. So I see that there are minimum of three things. I as the subject, the individual, then I see the Jagat or the universe with other individual human beings, other living beings, non-living beings, and then even if I don't see, I perceive, I understand that there is some unseen intelligent principle which is holding all these together and making the interaction between the individual and the universe or the Jagat very, very meaningful. So now, what is this intelligent principle called? In our scriptures, that intelligent principle is called Ishwara or Brahman. So there are three things here. Ishwara and Brahman are what are called as Paryaya Padas. There are synonyms. Sometimes we use the word Brahman, sometimes we use the word Ishwara. Ishwara is nothing but, or Brahman is nothing but that principle because of which the entire Jagat with all its components, including the individual living beings and non-living beings, function as one integral functional unit. So that we call as Ishwara. So here now we have a minimum of three things. There is a Jiva, there is a Jagat, and there is Ishwara. Jiva and Jagat are what are seen by me, what are experienced by all the other Jivas also through all their five sense organs. And they are interactable, transactable. Whereas Ishwara is that principle which I am not able to perceive by any of my sense organs. Now, I find that in spite of these three main divisions, I find that there are so many differences. What are these kind of differences here? It's very essential to describe these differences before we go to condense them into bringing them into one. Because ultimately the vision of Vedanta is that there is only one thing. There is no second thing. But I see multiple things with lot of differences. Our scriptures, Vedanta, calls these differences as different types of Vedas. What are these Vedas? Now, Vedanta says that there are three kinds of Vedas. Vijatiya Veda, Sajatiya Veda, and Swagata Veda. I'll explain what this means. It's very essential to know this before we come to one Ekameva Advitiyam. Before we come to that, we should know what are the differences that Vedanta explains, not simply as such, but we also see those differences. For example, now, let us take a group of trees. Let us take the group Jati. Jati means a group. Let us take a group of trees. Okay. Now we find that there are trees and trees and trees and trees. Okay. Among trees also, there are mango trees, there are flowering trees, non-flowering trees, hundreds, thousands types of trees. So that one tree, one type of tree differs from another group of trees. Like the mango group of trees differs from the coconut group of trees. This is what is called as the Vijatiya Bheda. Different types of they are there. Then we find that if we take one group, mango tree group, in the mango tree group also, we'll find that there are different shapes and sizes and heights and types of trees there in the mango trees. One mango tree is not the same as another mango tree. So within that group also, within that jati also, we find that there is difference. This is what is called as Sajatiya Bheda. So from a mango tree to other trees, it is a Vijatiya Bheda in the same group called trees. And within the group of mango trees, one tree differs from another tree. This is called as Sajatiya Bheda. And if you take one particular mango tree, we find that there are differences within that one tree in the form of what? In the form of there is a stem, there is a root, there are different branches, leaves, flowers, fruits. So there are Bhedas within. So this is what is called as Swagata Bheda. So now, I think there's some disturbance here. Yeah.
Kindly unmute everyone. Mute yourselves. Aniket, please mute everyone.
Yeah. So now what happens here is that I see the three Bhedas, that is, the Jiva, Jagat and Ishwara, the three main different things I'm seeing. And in the Jiva and Jagat also, I find three types of Bhedas. That is the Vijatiya Bheda, the Sajatiya Bheda and Swagata Bheda. Now, what does Vedanta say? Vedanta says that in spite of all these differences, millions of differences between the Vijatiya, Sajatiya, Swagata Bhedas, and millions of differences between the different Jivas and the Jagat. But then there is that one undivided, indivisible Ishwara or Brahman, which is literally the warp and the woof of the entire universe. Now, just because Vedanta says this, do we have to accept it? We cannot accept it just because Vedanta says it. Vedanta has to prove it, and it has to deduce this whole thing in such a way that the Jiva, Jagat, Ishwara, the main three groups, are brought down into two, and then the two are again reduced to one. This is the system. This is the deduction that Vedanta uses. Now, what does it say now? Let us take first, as I am the individual, I am the knower, let me first take the group of Jagat and Ishwara. So all these other differences which we saw, the Vijatiya, Sajatiya, Swagata Bheda, they all are only seen in the Jiva and the Jagat. Because Ishwara is not seen by me, not experienced by me, it is not possible for me to say whether it is one or whether it is many. But then, because in this field where the object of my knowledge, that is Ishwara, is not available for perception through my regular, means of perception, through my regular instruments of perception, therefore I have to depend on a particular set of knowledge. I have to depend on what is called as a pramana. A pramana is a proof. Like in the scientific field, we have certain experiments or certain pramanas which prove something. But then here, this is what we are talking about is, what is that Jagat and Ishwara connection? We are now, first step that Vedanta takes us to see that among the Jiva, Jagat, Ishwara, Vedanta tries to make us see that the Jagat and Ishwara are not different from each other. They are one and the same. That is the first step that Vedanta takes. So that is the first equation. So that is what is called as the Jagat Ishwara Aikyam. It tries to make the three into two. And then there are two there now. What is that? Jiva and the combination of Jagat Ishwara, which has been made into one. And ultimately, Vedanta uses a thing called as Mahavakya, in which the Jiva and the Jagat are also equated to be one. So with a set of equations, with a set of two equations, Vedanta proves that this multiplicity that we see in and around us, all these Vedas that we see around us, actually there is no Veda at all. Ultimately, there is only one thing. And the first step or the first equation is that among these three, Vedanta takes the first set of Jagat and Ishwara. Now, how does Vedanta bring the Jagat and Ishwara into one divisionless, indivisible one? It has to bring it. Now, let's see how Vedanta does it. For this purpose, Vedanta uses what is called as the Srishti Prakarana, or how actually the creation took place, how actually the creation of universe took place. We'll not go into it absolutely in the details that is given in the Upanishads, but let us see only one thing, that all the Upanishads talked about this Ishvara as the very cause of the Jagat. Jagat Karanam Ishvara, the scriptures say. Jagat Karanam Brahma, the scriptures say. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of Jagat Karanam? It says that this whole universe, which is now present in a manifest form, in a varied form, in a form of multiples, in various names and forms, was present in an unmanifest form before it became manifest, and it was one with this Ishvara. So, Chandogya Upanishad says, Sat eva saumya idam agra asi. Idam jagat sat eva agre srishkehe purvam asid. What is the meaning of that? It says that this entire Jagat, which is a manifest Jagat now, was present in an unmanifest form, in a potential form, in a seed form, in this Ishvara, which is called as Sat. Sat means pure existence. Now, I'm just introducing the terms, and as I go on, I'll be explaining what all these really mean. So, the entire Jagat, according to our scriptures, nothing new comes in every creation. Whatever is unmanifest, whatever is potential, gets manifested in various names and forms. It exists for some time, and after some time, that is maybe millions of years, after that, the whole universe of names and forms resolves back into its cause. Now, let us take two examples here. Let us take gold and ornaments. Now, in a block of gold, all the ornaments that were supposed to come out of that particular block of gold were already existing in a potential form in that particular block of gold, correct? When the ornaments happened, when the ornaments came, what happened to the gold? Nothing happened to the gold. It is the gold which itself manifested in various names and forms, and from an unmanifest ornament, the ornament manifested in this gold. Therefore, what our scriptures say is that, like gold, the gold is the karanam, the gold is the cause in which the potential effect is there. The effect of the ornaments are in the potential form, and they are already there in that gold. And what is done by the goldsmith is the intelligent principle called as the goldsmith, the intelligent, being, human being here, or the intelligent principle converts the material cause called as the gold, converts it into various ornaments. Now tell me, are the ornaments different from gold? Can you separate the ornaments from gold? You cannot separate, isn't it? So what is an ornament? An ornament is a mere name and form in the Karanam gold. So is ornament really an effect? No. Ornament is not an effect independent of the cause, correct? Supposing the ornament, which is the effect, was independent of the cause, then I can say, you keep the ornament and you give me the gold. Fine. Is it possible for a gold necklace to be separated from gold? No. Then what is a necklace? It is an effect of gold. What is gold? It is the cause of the necklace. Where was the necklace earlier? It existed in that gold in a potential form. What did the intelligent principle called as the goldsmith do? He just added a name and form and a utility to a particular shape called as necklace. Now, what is a necklace? A necklace is a name with a meaning for that. Pada, padartha. Necklace is a word for which there is a meaning which is inseparable. The word and the meaning are inseparable. Ultimately, what is there? The cause gold itself is manifesting in a certain name and form called as the effect. So is the effect different from cause? No. The effect is the cause with the name and form. The cause can exist independently without the effect. Gold can remain independent of a necklace, but a necklace can never exist independently of gold. That means the gold necklace has its existence in gold. Okay, the necklace arises out of gold, exists in gold, and when the necklace is melted, it goes back into the gold. Therefore, the gold is the Karanam, the Sat, the reality, the truth of the necklace. Okay, so whenever something appears, it has two ways in which it presents itself. One is its natural thing, or what is called as Tattva. Tattva is that which is the natural, the nature of it, which is called as Tattva. Now for a gold necklace, the nature of gold necklace, the Swarupam of gold necklace is gold, right? And there is a Pratiti. What is a Pratiti? That gold which I experience in a certain name and form. So there are two kinds of appearances, the Tattvam and the Pratiti. The Tattvam is something which is unseen, which is the cause, but we see it, but we are not able to really see it separate from the effect. Therefore, the effect and the cause are one and the same. Only thing is that some intelligent principle has added a name and form to this gold and made it into an effect called as a gold ornament. Let's take another example. Let's take ocean and waves. Fine? Now, when we say ocean, what is there? There is only water in that ocean, right? Let us take that ocean as the cause. In that ocean, big waves are rising, okay? Breakers are rising. Then we have small waves which are rising. Then we have got bubbles. We have got foam. All these things are appearing in the ocean. Now the waves, the bubbles, the foam are mere appearance. What is there is only water, correct? Water appears as the effect called as a wave. Wave is a mere effect. Potentially the wave was there in that water. It appeared out of water, plays around in water for some time, resolves back into the same water again. Therefore, the water called as the ocean is the Karanam and the wave is the Karyam. Now, is the wave different from water? Can you hold a wave in your hand without holding water? Can you touch a wave without touching the water? Can you touch a gold necklace without touching the gold? No. Therefore, what our scripture says, our entire Jagat and Ishwara relationship is like that. What is that relationship? Karana-Karya relationship. What is Karanam here? Sat, or that Ishwara. Nothing else was there. Sadeva Saumya Idamagra Asi, Chandogya Upanishad says. So what it means is this entire universe existed in a potential form where there was no pratiti, there was no experience of any name and form. And it was in a potential form in its cause. And for some reason, for whatever reason, the potential universe literally appeared, from that cause and manifested itself into various names and forms. And there must be an intelligent principle which has manifested this effect, which is inseparable from the cause. Now, what our scriptures say is, in gold, we had the material cause as the gold, which is called as the Upadana Karanam, and we had the goldsmith as the intelligent cause, the Nimitta Karanam, to bring out a potential necklace into a name and form called necklace. But in this universe, when the Jagat appears, our scriptures say that the entire universe was literally hidden in a potential form in what is called as Ishwara, who is the very material cause of this universe. And that Ishwara itself is also the intelligent cause, and this entire universe is intelligently put together. And the universe or the Jagat is not separate from the cause, which is Ishwara. Ishwara is the cause, the Jagat is the effect. Ishwara is the point where this Jagat rises. It exists in Ishwara. It resolves back into Ishwara. Brahman, Ishwara, consciousness, Sat, Sat Atma, Chit Atma, Atma, all these are the same, the words of the same meaning used by our scriptures. Therefore, what is the relationship between Jagat and Ishwara? Karanam Ishwara and Karyam Jagat. And this Ishwara is both the material cause as well as the intelligent cause of the manifest universe. Now, then, all right, we see so many names and forms in this universe now. What is the truth about these names and forms? Now, this ornament, again we'll take the example of ornament. The ornament is only a name and form, isn't it? An intelligently put together name and form, which is all the time there as long as it exists. And then it goes back into the gold again. So when it is existing, it has a particular name and form. Now, what is the name and form real? Is the name and form called necklace real, or is gold real? Now, a very funny thing we do, because our vision is exactly opposite. It is skewed from the Vedantic vision. Because Vedanta says gold is the very cause of the material. It is the Karanam and necklace is the Karyam. So, what is the substance? Gold. What is the necklace? It is only a name and form. But how do we describe a necklace? We say golden necklace. See how our vision has completely skewed. Now, the substance gold is converted into an adjective. The noun is converted into an adjective, golden. Correct? The necklace or the chain, which is really not there, which is a mere name and form, is made into a noun or substance. So we say golden necklace. Actually, how should we say it? If it's a chain, the real way, correct way of looking at it is chainy gold, necklacey gold, ringy gold, bangly gold. Because gold is the substance. The change that has taken place is in the Karyam. But our vision is the substance is converted into an attribute and the attribute is taken to be the substance. This is where our vision is exactly opposite to what the reality is, what the truth is. And Vedanta is giving us the truth and saying that the substance, the whole warp and woof of this entire universe, the very, content of this entire universe, the very existence of universe, the very disappearance of universe at the end of universe the very creation, the so-called creation of universe is nothing but an effect with a name and form in the substance, the vastu we call it, the vastu or substance. It's not really a substance, it is called as the vastu, which is Brahman, Ishwara or consciousness. Now therefore, what our scriptures say is that, is Jagat different from Ishwara? No, the Jagat is not different from Ishwara, correct? Now, if I say I show a flower to you by common consensus, okay, then I look at the flower and I see what in that flower. When I see that flower, the thought in my mind is the flower is, right? The flower is. Is means what? The flower exists. The flowerness of the flower is its existence. I don't know whether I'm making sense, but I cannot in this particular aspect of what we have taken Advaita, I have to say these things. When I see a particular object, like the rose or a flower, or let us take the gold ornament only. When I'm taking that gold ornament, like say a chain, when I'm seeing that particular thing, the name chain for a particular utility and a particular form is given. When I relate to the chain, how do I relate to it? The chain is, correct? So the chain, the isness of the chain is an object of my consciousness. That is why I can say the chain is, isn't it? That which is an object of my consciousness, only I can say is, right? Otherwise I cannot say. That which is not an object of my consciousness, I cannot say is or is not. Now, the flower is, after some time the flower is not, I can still say the flower, that flower is not. The is not, the absence of the flower also is an object of my cognition. So what here Vedanta says is that Ishwara, that cause which is immutable, the cause does not change. Only the effect is a manifestation in that particular cause called as Ishwara. Ishwara or Brahman is changeless material, the isness. That isness and the cognition, the I-ness, what is called as the Sat and Chit. Now, this is the fundamental of Vedanta. The Atma is Sat, Chit, Ananda Rupa. Now, in Drishya Viveka, there is a work called as Drishya Viveka by Swami Vidyaranya. In that, there is a verse, Asti Bhati Priyam Rupam Nama Chet Amsha Panchakam Adhyatrayam Brahma Rupam Jagad Rupam Tatodvayam. All my Thursday class students, Geeta, Lakshmi, Sajani, Jayashri, all of you will remember. We have done this in detail, Drishya Viveka. Fine. So what it says is, whenever you see anything, there are 5 things in it. Okay. One thing is what? Asti, the isness of an object when you see the Jagat. Then Bhati, it shines as an object of my consciousness. The flower I am taking, or the chain, gold chain I am taking. The chain is, it is an object of my consciousness, my cognition. It shines as an object. It reveals itself as an object of my consciousness. And when that is beheld, it gives me sukha, preeti, asti bhati priyam. Now what about apriyam? We will not bother about it right now. That there will be another topic to that. So, asti bhati priyam, the existence of an object, and that object being an object of consciousness shines as an object of consciousness. And when the isness of the object is cognized by the consciousness, there is a connection between the cognizer consciousness and the existence of this particular object, which gives a sense of understanding, fulfillment in knowing, which is called as Ananda. So, Asti Bhati Priyam. So, all of you have heard these 3 terms, Sat, Chit, Ananda, Atma. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. So, what it says is, Adhyatrayam Brahma Rupam. The cause of the universe is of the nature of Asti, Bhati, Priyam, or Sat, Chit, Ananda, which is called as Atma, Ishwara, Brahman, Sad Atma, Sat. All these are the names given to that. And from two things, that is Jagat and Ishwara, what Vedanta does is, Jagat is ultimately nothing but the cause Ishwara. Like, if I have the vision of gold, when I look at the chain, rather than having my vision on the chain, can I, transcend the chain name and form and look at the gold as the stuff? That is what Vedanta is asking us to do. This should be your vision. When you see multiple names and forms in the universe, don't look at them as individual different realities. The whole thing is multiple names and forms. Transcend that appearance. The pratiti or the appearance transcend, and let your vision be on the cause. Like when you're seeing waves of different sizes and shapes, when you're seeing all these bubbles and foam and all, can you transcend your vision to behold the water behind all these three? So can you transcend the vision of the chain and behold the vision of the chain as gold? This is the vision of Vedanta, which says that try to transcend your vision from the superficial name and form of the entire universe, and ultimately what you'll find is nothing but the Karanam Ishwara. So all the Karyas are nothing but one Karanam. Like all the ornaments, 100 ornaments have been made from one block of gold. Ultimately, that one block of gold is the reality, the truth of all the 100 ornaments. Correct? There are not 100 golds. There is one gold, 100 manifestations. The manifestations are superficial. The manifestations are name and form. The manifestations come and go. Therefore, the manifestation of a name and form is not real. It is only an experiential reality. The gold is the actual reality. All the ornaments are only experiential reality. Similarly, our scriptures say that ultimately the whole universe of names and forms is only an experiential reality which appears and disappears. It has no stuff of itself. It has no independent existence of its own. And the Karanam, Ishwara or Brahman is the entire Jagat. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. This entire thing, whatever is there, is only Brahman. Okay? Sarvam Ishwaramayam Jagat. This entire Jagat is nothing but Ishwaramayam. These are all the statements of the Upanishads. So, now from 3 what happened? Multiples were there, and we divided the entire multiple manifest universe into Jiva, Jagat and Ishwara, like what Vedanta does. Then, in the first step, what happened? The set of Jagat and Ishwara were taken and deduced. That equation was reduced to one single. It was seen that Ishwara, Jagat equals Ishwara ultimately. If you remove the names and forms, why should you remove the names and forms? Because the names and forms are only incidental. The names and forms are only experiential. The names and forms are not permanent. What is the stuff of this entire Jagat is nothing but this Ishwara or Brahman. So what is the Jagat? The Jagat is nothing but Ishwara. Now this side is kept aside. Okay, one side is kept. So one equation is worked out and the answer is kept on the other side. Now the most important thing is that, the Vedanta or our scriptures come to me. Now the Jagat and Ishwara too have been actually seen as nothing but one, with so many examples I gave you. Now what is left behind? There are only 2 things which are left behind. One is me, the Jiva, okay, the cognizer, the Jiva, and one is Ishwara, only Ishwara. Ishwara means Jagat included in it. And I'm looking at Ishwara as the very cause of the Jagat. So I don't separate Jagat from Ishwara. But now I am there who's seeing the entire Jagat. All right, I understand this whole Jagat as an experiential reality And the cause of this manifest Jagat is nothing but Ishwara, all right. But then there are two again. I am there, Ishwara is there. So what do I do with this? Now the Upanishads come back with what is called as a Mahavakya. What is a Mahavakya? It says that it is an equation. Mahavakya is an equation. What is an equation? Now, when there are two sides, where the two sides superficially look different from each other. Okay? For example, let us take this example. 5 plus 4 equals, 100 minus 1. 100 minus, we have to get 9. 100 minus 91. Okay? 5 plus 4 equals 100 minus 91. Fine? Now, this is an equation. And how do I see that the left hand side is equal to the right hand side? I have to derive it. I have to derive the left hand side first. Then I have to derive the right hand side first. And at the end, the worked out equation shows that in spite of the differences, there on the left side, what was there? 5 plus 4, single digits plus mark. Okay. On the right side, what is there? 100 minus 91. 3 digits, 2 digits, and 1 minus mark. In all aspects, it looks totally different, the equation. Correct? If both the sides of the equation are same, you don't need an equation. There is no need. If you want to say 9 equals 9, there is no need of an equation. Supposing two sides of the equation cannot be equal, supposing 9 and 8 on one side, equation is not possible. When is an equation possible? When is an equation necessary? When there are two things which look very different superficially, but then actually when you work them out and deduce them, we find that ultimately the crux or the tattva or the actual content of both the sides is one and the same. So when I work it out, I find 9 equals 9. Before that, I cannot say that 9 equals 9. I have to work it out. And for maybe a primary school student, it will take him 3-4 steps. Whereas for me, yes, I can know it because I have done it. Now what Vedanta says is, this Mahavakya is an equation which equates you, the individual, with the total Ishwara. Now, is it possible? When I say I include this body, mind, sense complex, and also my ahankara, my individuality, the individual that I am. And at the same time, what Vedanta says is that behind all this appearance, behind all this body, mind, sense complex, ultimately, there is this cognitive faculty called as consciousness. And it is that consciousness because of which this body, mind, sense complex is existing as it is. Just like Ishwara is the cause of the manifest Jagat, names and forms outside, Ishwara is also the cause of this body, mind, sense complex also, which is also a part of the name and form Jagat or universe. Therefore, what it says is, Mahavakyas means what? Jiva Ishwara Abheda, or seeing that I am not different from Ishwara. Superficially, Ishwara or Brahman or God or intelligence, whatever you call it, that is something Sarvagnya, all-knowing, Sarvavit, and Sarva Vibhutimat and Aishwaryamat. It's powerful. I mean, how can I compare? How can I say I, this limited body, mind, sense complex, this puny individual myself, how can I say that I am that God? Is that not blasphemy? No, what our scriptures say is that you are not equating this name and form of the body, mind, sense complex with the total called Ishvara, but you deduce ultimately both the sides. What is Ishvara? The entire Jagat with the consciousness or the existence behind it. And what are you? What are you? This individual. The individual you is nothing but that body, mind, sense complex. How did this body, mind, sense complex come about? How did all the other body, mind, sense complexes of the human beings, other jivas, plants, everything, how did they come about? In this, The Upanishads talk about the Srishti or the creation of the universe from what are called as the 5 elements. And in Chandogya Upanishad, what it says is that how this body has been born. Now it talks about the individual also, how this body has been born. There are other individuals outside. So it applies to every individual. What it says is that there are 3 main principles or 3 main elements. It starts with the fire principle, the water principle, and also the earth principle. That is the, Agni, Apaha, and, Prithvi, Tattva. Now what he says is that, Prithvi is the grossest. The food that we eat is the grossest. Fine. Now what happens when the food is eaten by us? It is led by water. It is made liquid by water. And with the process of digestion where heat is involved, Jataragni, fire principle is involved, all the very, very subtle nutrients, the finer nutrients are absorbed in the human being, and it is converted, the food that is eaten by the jiva is converted into the eggs in a female and the sperm in a male. Fine, ultimately. And that ultimately, when there is a combination of the two, then a new body is formed. Now, what is this body? What is this mind? It is nothing but the effect of these 3 elements. That is the fire principle. Of course, these are things which we have to go very deeply, but for in 1 hour, I'm just trying to give a bird's eye view of this so that we can go into details if necessary at some other time. So we have this fire principle, which is the ultimate, which is the basic one, from which, there is an appearance of the water principle, and then, the Prithvi or the earth principle. Whereas other Upanishads talk about 5 elements. They say Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. So in that order, the creation of all the body, mind, sense complexes took place in the individual jiva and outside also. And it is the very same cause, that very Brahman, that consciousness, as though entered into this body, mind, sense complex of a living being and made this particular individual as a cognizing, knowing individual. Now, there are 2 things here in the Jagat, isn't it? Non-living, insentient beings. They are also born from the same thing, same process of the 5 elements or 3 elements as given in different Upanishads. But then, when we see the non-living creatures, they do not have a subtle body that we people have. We people means who? The jivas, the living beings, the human beings, the other animals, even up to the lowliest of the living being, like a blade of grass. All these living organisms, they have got the Sukshma Sharira in them. So it makes them capable of cognizing and knowing the objects outside. The objects which are not having Sukshma Sharira. The objects which are only gross, they do not reflect this consciousness. But we, the living organism, we reflect that Sat of Brahman in the body, mind, sense complex, and that Chit Swarupa Atma is reflected in our Sukshma Shariras. So, what is said here is that, the individual human, the individual jiva is also a combination of an effect of this Sat, Chit, Atma. Chit means what? Consciousness Swarupa. Sat means what? Existence. So when I say I am, what is the meaning of I am? I means cognitive principle, the knower, the knowingness. Am means existence. But when I address a table, I say this is. When I say this, in that table, only existence is felt of the cause. The consciousness or the sentience is not felt because a gross object has got only the gross body, no subtle body. So this entire Jagat, which is a mixture of gross and subtle bodies, where the living being is a mixture of gross and subtle, we don't have to bother about insentient bodies, because the insentient objects are not interested and they are not bothered about Jiva Ishwara Aikyam, right? It is I, the living being, who wants to know the correct vision of who am I in this entire, plot of the whole universe, in this entire drama of the universe. What is the relationship between me and the Jagat and Ishwara? Am I different from Jagat? Am I different from Ishwara? Are we one and the same? So the Mahavakya comes here. The Mahavakya says, Tat Tvam Asi. That consciousness, that Sat, that Chit, which is the very cause of the entire universe, called as Ishwara or Brahman, is that which is the cause of this body, mind, sense complex also. So, when we take the equation of Jiva on one side and Ishwara on one side, when all the attributes are intellectually removed, the body, mind, sense complex are transcended, and I look at that vision like gold vision, how I transcended the ornament and looked at the gold as the main substance. If I can transcend my vision and look beyond the body, mind, sense complex into that Atma, that consciousness, me, that is I, that is who I am. This body, mind, sense complex, like any other object in the Jagat, appears in me, the consciousness, exists in me for some time, and then it disappears. But I, this consciousness, is immutable, imperishable. And this consciousness is the one which is the cause of the entire Jagat also as Ishwara. So ultimately what is there? The very content, the very stuff, the very basis, which we call as Adhishtanam in our Shastras, the very Adhishtanam, the very base of the Jiva, the very Adhishtanam or the base of the Jagat, the very Adhishtanam or the content of Ishwara is nothing but that one consciousness. So the Jiva and Jagat has nothing but that one Brahman or Ishwara manifesting as Sat Chit associated individual Jiva, or the Sat Chit manifesting as a living being in a living being, and the one which manifests only as Sat Swarupa in a non-living or an insentient being. Therefore, he says, Tattvamasi is one of the most important, what? The Mahavakya. What does it mean? Tat Brahma, Tat Saha Ishvara, Tat Brahma, Sa Atma, he says, Tattvamasi Shvetaketo, Tvamasi, Tat Brahma, Sa Atma, Tvam Asi Shvetaketo. He tells the Guru is teaching the Shishya Shvetaketu, and he's telling them ultimately, you and Ishvara are not different from each other, because ultimately the side A, Jiva, and right hand side, Ishvara, when you remove all the names and forms intellectually, how do we can't remove them, they are there. But if we develop this vision of transcending the superficial, changing multiplicity and duality, what we find ultimately is nothing but that one existence, consciousness, which is neither born nor does it die, nor does it change. It is all the time imperishably existent in all three periods of time. And in that consciousness, the body, mind, sense complexes of various jivas appear, the names and forms of the entire universe appear, and therefore, if I think that I am different from the other individuals, if I am different from the Jagat, if I am different from Ishvara, then I will suffer from multiplicity, the syndrome of multiplicity, which is nothing but samsara. But the vision that Vedanta wants us to have is you and the Jagat and Ishvara are one and the same existentially. Actually, in the ultimate sense, it is only the Sat Chit Ananda Atma, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, which is the Adhishtanam, which is the content of you as the individual, of every other individual, of the entire Jagat, and also it is nothing but Ishvara or Brahman. Therefore, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi. And when this Tattvamasi is understood by the Shishya, he is able to have the vision. What is that vision? I am not the body, mind, sense complex. I am Atma or Ishwara. The Jagat that I am looking out is not really the reality. The names and forms with all their beauty, utility, novelty, everything are nothing but names and forms. But the ultimate reality of the entire experienced Jagat or the world is nothing but Ishwara. The reality of this experienced body, mind, sense complex is nothing but Ishwara or Brahman. Therefore, the vision of Vedanta is there is only one thing. Sat eva saumya idam agra asit. And ayam atma brahma, it is said. A Mahavakya, all the Upanishads are full of Mahavakyas. Hundreds and hundreds of Mahavakyas, thousands of Mahavakyas are there in Vedanta. But then to make it easy for teaching, 4 Mahavakyas have been commonly used for the sake of teaching purposes. That is, Chandogya Upanishad talks about Tattvamasi, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad talks about Aham Brahmasmi. That is what I have understood from the teacher, Tattvamasi, that the teacher said. When I have internalized this knowledge, I see myself as that consciousness or Brahman, and I say Aham Brahma Asmi, Aham Ishvara Asmi. And then Mandukya Upanishad says Ayam Atma Brahma. So this consciousness here is not different from that which is the adhishtanam of the entire Jagat outside. Bhagwan Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Kshetragnyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Sarva bhuta sthitam atmanam sarva bhutani cha atmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. So what is the meaning of it? All these scriptures, our Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Prakarana Granthas, all of them say that ultimately there is one consciousness, unchangeable, immutable, constant, imperishable, and whatever is appearing as a name and form is a mere appearance. Our problem now is we are thinking that the name and form is reality, and the real thing, what I am, who I am, is missed. Okay. Therefore, what Vedanta says is, now with this teaching, it's only trying to correct my vision. Vedanta doesn't give me any new knowledge. Vedanta only tells me, look, the way you look at yourself, the way you look at the Jagat right now is wrong. Your vision is wrong. I will tell you how to look at the Jagat and yourself correctly. And when the vision changes, when I'm able to see the vision of Vedanta, I am able to understand the vision of Vedanta, that ultimately there is nothing other than this consciousness and existence. And everything that appears as multiple, many things is only an appearance. It is useful, it is transactable, it is necessary for transaction, but I should not take it to be the absolute reality and get caught by it. When I consider the name and form, including this body, mind, sense complex, and all the other names and forms as reality, and I get caught in them, entangled in them, then comes the bondage for me. And then I want to get free from that bondage. How do I get free from bondage? I have to see things correctly. I have to see the false as false. I have to see the real as real. And what is false? False does not mean it does not exist. It does not mean that the Jagat does not exist. It very much exists. It is a Srishti of Ishwara. It exists. It is a Karyam of Ishwara. It exists. But then the names and forms that we are transacting with, they are only transactable realities, experiential realities. If we get caught into them as real, as the ultimate reality, then we suffer. So Vedanta says, change your vision and see what you are really for what you are. See yourself as that Atma, Jagat Karanam Brahma Atma. See the entire Jagat as nothing but that Jagat Karanam Ishvara or Brahman. Then when you see Ekatram Sarvataha, everywhere, Ekatvam Astitaha, when you see that one thing, in spite of many, I understand that there is only one. In spite of many ornaments, there is only one gold. In spite of hundreds and millions of waves, there is only one water. In spite of hundreds of clay articles of different shapes and forms and sizes, there is only one clay. Similarly, in spite of various, names and forms, which are absolutely very, very necessary for our transactions, but let us understand that. Let us use the names and forms only for the sake of Vyavahara, transact with them, let them not give reality to them and get caught by them. Use them for what they are and understand that behind all this multiplicity, there is one Ekam Eva Advitiyam, without a second, one consciousness. This is the vision of Vedanta, and the one who successfully, is able to correct his vision, correct his wrong vision to the vision of Vedanta, such a person is called as a Jivan Mukta, Jnani, Sthita Prajna. They're all described in Bhagavad Gita. So such a person is considered to be a Jnani. Nothing has happened to him. No halo has come around his head. There are no changes. It's only the way he looks at the world. So how I am, how happy I am in this Jagat depends on my attitude towards my own body, mind, sense complex and the Jagat outside. If my vision is right, as what our scriptures are saying, then I'm no longer bound. I don't need moksha. I don't need any emancipation. Because what I need is only to correct my vision. Moksha or emancipation or nirvana is not something to be got from outside. It only means seeing the right thing correctly, seeing what is to be seen in the way it has to be seen. And this correcting of my wrong vision and seeing what the reality is, the change of vision is actually the purpose of Vedanta. So I was asked to stop by about 7:45. Yes, I have used a lot of terms, technical terms, but the topic of Advaita as the vision of Vedanta cannot be spoken without, bringing some of these things. And since most of you are students of Vedanta, it should not be difficult for you to have understood, the content of today's talk. And those who are not very comfortable with these terms, it gives you an impetus to go deeper, probably, into Vedanta and see and understand for yourself what this vision of Vedanta is. I think I'll stop here and Sajani, over to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Sudha ji. That was really wonderful, the talk. Such a difficult subject, and you made it so easy. It was so good, and I loved the flow, the way you went on. So thank you so much. But right now, we will ask people for questions. There is one question in the chat box. Mr. Janakiram, would you like to unmute yourself and ask it? Please.
No question. I have just put an equation which may help people.
I know it's an equation, but you could read it out so that everyone could hear it. Okay.
Actually, Atman is covered with Upadhis. So Brahman is covered with Upadhis. Otherwise, Brahman is Atman.
Yeah, see,
so, Upadhis are the Sula Sarira and Karana Sarira and Shushma Sharira. So those can be in the next talk so that we take it forward.
Oh yes, yeah. What you say, the Sula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira at the individual level are called as the Upadhis. What is an Upadhi? Upadhi is an attribute. Actually speaking, these Upadhis cannot cover the Atma, but it is as though it is covered. What is covered is my buddhi is covered. See, by the wrong vision, by the incorrect vision, it is my buddhi which is covered as far as the correct nature of Atman is concerned. And I take Upadhi as the reality, the Sthula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharira, Upadhis as reality, and I miss the Atman. That is, and similarly in the Samashti level, that is the totality, the entire universe can be divided into Sthula Prapancha, Sukshma Prapancha, Karana Prapancha. So for Brahman, when you talk about from Samashti level, these three can be called as Upadhis. So just like in me, the individual, Sthula Sharira, in the Samashti, it is Sthula Prapancha. Sukshma Sharira, Sukshma Prapancha, Karana Sharira, Karana Prapancha. And it is not that they are covering consciousness. It is by vision which is not able to transcend the upadhis and see or behold the consciousness for what it is. That is the reality.
Thank you. Very good clarity I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janakiram.
Thank you so much. A lot of people have been thanking you in the chat, saying you have made it so simple. Your flow was so wonderful.